here we are back again. A very long ride. We started this morning very, very early, so we are almost not at the end of our marathon, almost. We started in Australia and then Asia, Mediterranean, Africa, and then Europe. In a bit, we're going to start our deep dive around the Americas. And now we are landing in Washington, D.C. I'm very glad today to be together with our most important partner, that is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and in particular, the Learning Academy of FAO. And now I would love to invite with me in this virtual stage a very important guest from the United States, that is Dr. Ture Kayan, Executive Director of Policy and Global Affairs Division at the United Nations U.S. National Academy of Science. I'm so sorry, we are live since 20 hours, so we're starting to miss some words around, some
things, yes,
and so on. But anyway, it's been a very incredible word lesson.
That's wonderful. And Claudia, thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be here, especially in a time when none of us are able to actually travel. I feel like I'm going around the world now, which is a good feeling to sort of feel back connected. So anyway, it's a great pleasure to be here. And it's as you mentioned, Claudia, I am Vaughn Tarikian. I serve as the Executive Director for the Policy and Global Affairs at the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. And we have really, in hearing about all this discussion around food and agriculture and the importance to so many different topics, particularly celebrating this Earth Day, which, as a number of your guests have pointed out, was something that was started in the United States 51 years ago as a response to a lot of the concerns that were coming out of environmental degradation from massive advances. It's a great honor to be here, and it's also a great honor to be here because I know that, there's another summit going on right now in Washington, D.C., or around the world, actually, really, which our leadership around the world are committing to real climate action. And so we're seeing in so many ways this day is not only a day around Earth Day, but really it's a day where we're bringing and seeing some of the great forces of political, scientific, non-governmental research activities coming together to try to solve some of the great societal challenges around the environment and climate change. In fact, my organization next week will be hosting something that will be very similar. It'll be a Nobel Summit that will be taking place in Washington, D.C. and around the world virtually with Nobelists from around the world in partnership with our colleagues from the Nobel Foundation and from the Potsdam Institute of Climate. And it will be on this issue of our future and our Earth and our future, and so many of the topics around climate change, equity, biodiversity, and technology will be there. This topic of food and agriculture is so central to what my organization thinks about, in no small part because my organization has a direct connection to the world of food research and agricultural research in the United States. That is that we were discovered and founded by Abraham Lincoln when he was president. So the National Academy of Sciences was created by Abraham Lincoln as a way to advise government on issues of science and engineering and medicine. What is telling is Abraham Lincoln was also a very committed person to seeing increased amounts of investment and research into food and agricultural systems. He signed the major act on top of many other things that created the land-grant universities in the United States. Those land-grant universities have been the hub and, in fact, the engine for so much research that's taken place in the food and agricultural space. I mean, you can almost think of any of the major sort of research areas that have come out in food and agriculture in the United States, and you can find a connection to those land-grant universities. But from another standpoint, we've had a very long history of working with other academies around the world to think about issues around food and food systems. In fact, we work with our Inter-Academy Partnership colleagues. The Inter-Academy Partnership is actually based out of Trieste, Italy, and Washington, D.C. And they had a report with 130 national academies talking about a wake-up call on the issues around food and food systems and how they are actually right now failing humanity and speeding up many climate changes. What we found in those conversations was actually this august group of scientists around the world, really started to think about major changes that we need to be made, including things like climate smart food systems that urges shifts to climate smart systems. At the same time, limiting agricultural's greenhouse gas emissions alone will not be sufficient to address food systems impact on climate change. We actually have to think to a smarter climate change smart food system. We need to develop incentives for consumers to change diets. That was another thing that this august panel of 130 academies of sciences came up with. Changing ways that we think about diets, thinking about ways we think about innovative food. And policymakers have a role in this, needing to help consumers understand and weigh the environmental implications of food choices. But also, as we've seen through so much of the work in the Sustainable Development Goals, doing things that we should thinking about reducing food waste. And it needs to be prioritized. Food waste is a major contributor not only to lost food, but also significant land degradation and climate change. And like I said, innovative foods. I mean, we're seeing so much in this space of food and agricultural development, thinking about what do we need to know around how we're thinking changing dietary consumption could bring co-benefits to health and climate, such as maybe reducing meat consumption in some regions and increasing innovative foods and diets. These are things like we've seen already, things like, more exotic mushroom mixes, other ways of thinking about insect-based foods. And what we need really is a better connectivity between the social sciences and the natural sciences. We need to look at the fact that there's so much innovation, but this will require stronger connections between different disciplines of science so that we can think about how we connect cutting-edge technologies, science education, training, and as our previous panel talked about, communications. And that life sciences and basic research have to cooperate much more closely with the social sciences and the policy research community on food in order to make something go forward. And finally, we can't deal with the food system solely by looking at one country or one region. The food system is so wholly integrated now. The use of natural resources is so wholly integrated. I mean, we think about things like the movement of soy around the world. Well, the movement of soy is not just the movement of soy, it's the movement of water, which is used to grow that soy. So we have to think about all of these complexities, and that requires really a robust discussion with so many parts of the earth system, the ecosystem, to understand how do we move forward. So I know that my organization, like I said, has done a lot of work with not only in the United States but around the world in thinking about food systems, because really, again, when you look at things like the SDGs, when you look at things like climate change, when you look at things like biodiversity, only by bringing the science and technology with the international community, with the food producers and the food consumers and the places where food is purchased and made, only by bringing that ecosystem together are we going to really be able to make real progress in something that is critical to human survival, which is food for Earth and food for people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because in a day like this one, when actually we really started hearing voices of experts, scientists, indigenous communities, young innovators, startuppers, ministers, so voices really from the different layer of the society in different parts of the world, from Australia to South Korea, Japan, China, Indonesia, everywhere, moving forward together. We are really understanding that this is something that cannot be achieved just by one country. Of course, when we are talking about countries of your size, if we're talking about US, you can play a crucial role. But then we need to move forward all together. And what you have been highlighting is the complexity of food and how much everything is interconnected. So I really thank you so much, because I think that bringing the voice of US, and today for us is a very important day also because we are for the first time official partner of what is happening in DC, because we are, and we've been in the platform of Earth Day since this morning very early, and then we switch with your super important summit. I think has been really a great opportunity for all of us to highlight how much our daily choices, and each time we gather around the table, we have to remember and celebrate our history, celebrating the presence, because anyway, food is culture, is sociality, is experience, is care, but also every bite is connecting us with the future. Every choice can have an impact on the health of the planet, on the resources we are using. So really, really, really thank you so much for supporting our marathon. And we move forward. We have still to go on. We still have to run around the world with carrying the flame, carrying the flame. Thank you so much. And thank you so much also to the Italian Embassy in Washington, D.C. for connecting us with great mind and incredible scientists that are doing an outstanding work, really, to show us which are the impact we are making, because we need all to be aware about the impact we are daily making with our food production and the food system that need to be rebooted and fixed.
Yes, microphone. So this will be my final intervention for the Food for Earth Day 2021. And while I'm waiting for the last climate shaper to join me on screen, I just wanted to repeat how amazing and grateful I am for this growing community. We have over 155 climate shapers who graduated from either the in-person or the digital bootcamp, what we organized together with FAO. And the next dates are actually on our website, so please check it out. And also, if you would like to get to know them a bit better, we actually have a series on our Instagram account where we host our climate shapers to tell their stories, their connection to the food system, and how they are trying to act towards a more sustainable food future. And now I would like to ask Ebby Famartino to turn on her camera and mic and come on stage with me. Hi, Ebby.
Hi, Julia. Thank you.
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
I know that your team members are unfortunately in other time zones, so we won't have them here live with us.
No.
But what is more important, that also shows the diversity of your team, and you will introduce one of the hackathon ideas what you developed over the bootcamp last winter. So now, because we are very conscious of time, I would like to hand over the stage to you.
Thank you. Great. Oh, so it is an honor to be here today, and I'm going to present an ambitious business solution that promotes sustainability holistically, using restaurants as a central point of community connection and action. And Feed for Future is an idea, as Julia mentioned, that was developed through the Food and Climate Shaper Bootcamp program, which is a joint program run by the Future Food Institute and the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. And the purpose of our project was to engage people and businesses in the urgent issue of the 2030 agenda. So what I'm presenting today is indeed a product of a globally dispersed team who worked tirelessly over a concentrated 48-hour hackathon period. And I want to share my immense gratitude for my amazing teammates, Vanshika Bhatia, Ahmed Sanaullah, and Jessica Rosval. As a team, we have collective experience as chefs, chef owners, project and program managers, and students of sustainable food systems. In addition, we have a range of backgrounds in economics, finance, and international studies. And what I'd like to do today is to share our business, share the process we took to arrive at our business proposal, present you the business, and also open at the end for some feedback, because this is a work in progress with a lot of room for development. So during the hackathon, our team tackled the following problem statement. How might we enable chef owners to increase demand for sustainable restaurants while achieving a triple bottom line business? So this targeted question addresses the challenge that restaurants face in balancing environmental sustainability and economic viability. The market for sustainable, viable restaurants has historically been limited to high-end restaurants that reach a narrow range of customers. Yet restaurants are this magical meeting place where in some countries, consumers are spending the majority of their food dollar out of the home. So how might we create a dynamic solution to inspire restaurants at all price points, serving and employing a wide range of people to act more sustainably in service of the 2030 agenda? We identified 3 key influencer groups who participate and enable the restaurant industry, and explored the problems and opportunities of each of these before solidifying our idea. First, we looked at the consumer. We identified a strong consumer market for sustainable restaurants from Gen Y, the so-called life livers, and Gen Z, the self-proclaimed world savers. And statistical evidence indicates that these two generations make up a combined 66% of the current consumer base. And they're willing to invest a majority of their disposable income to support and enjoy sustainable businesses as a way to showcase their values of welfare and wellness and climate awareness. Next, we looked at restaurants. For independent restaurants, there's a steep cliff for sustained success, which is made harder during the pandemic. Tight profit margins, high rates of food waste that limit profits. For most restaurants, especially those at lower meal price points, sustainability is something they see that is a cost they can't afford, when in reality, it's an opportunity they can't ignore if they wish to survive and to differentiate. And importantly, restaurants really need to ensure that they can have their sustainability efforts be visible so that they're attracting those customers and they're getting a market payoff for their efforts. Finally, our producers. So we have a dwindling number of farmers who face many challenges to carve out a sustainable livelihood. And we considered what solution might help farmers and suppliers have an income stream through restaurants, a diversified income stream. In short, could restaurants be a vehicle for community sustainable development? So we looked across the 17 sustainable development goals to hone in on the most impactful ways that we could imagine the restaurant industry contributing to achieving the 2030 agenda. We envision a future where restaurants are rewarded for reducing community hunger and improving food consumption and production habits, where restaurants build sustainable urban and rural communities through their sourcing investments and their employee education efforts. And we want all of these efforts to be visible to a sustainable customer base to incentivize and incite social change. With that, we envisioned Feed for Future. Feed for Future is inspired by the LEED certification for green building design. Feed for Future stands for Food, Environment, Education, and Development for the Future. It's a sustainable restaurant certification and marketplace with a TripAdvisor-like restaurant guide that's accessible to the public. Independent restaurants become certified by Feed, recognized on a map, and connected to suppliers and consumers, helping them become more profitable and sustainable. While the business has benefits for all three influencer groups, I'm going to walk you through how it will work through the eyes of a restaurant chef owner to indicate the benefits. So meet Christine. She's the owner of a pho restaurant in Portland, Oregon, where the average meal ticket is $12 US. Christine's been struggling to keep her business going during the pandemic, and she's spending extra time and money purchasing ingredients at retail price due to the unstable global supply chain. One day, Christine encounters a young customer who asks where the chicken on her menu comes from. And when Christine cannot provide a clear local source, the customer leaves. Christine realizes that to survive, she needs to update her operation to appeal to this new audience. After a quick Google search, she and her daughter find the Feed for Future certification. On the Feed for Future certification page, Christine answers intake questions related to the 4 key SDG areas. She receives a level 1 feed rating and also a report with her strengths and opportunities. While Christine sources many ingredients from overseas, which created a lower score in the food indicator area due to volatile supply chains, she earned points in the environment indicator area by using compostable to-go containers. She also donates her end-of-day product to a local shelter that serves people experiencing food insecurity, which earned her points in the development area. Shortly after reviewing the report, Christine receives a message that she's paired with a level 4 feed chef owner as an ambassador to help Christine connect to local suppliers and increase her rating in the food area. The ambassador introduces Christine to John, who runs a local chicken farm called Marion Acres. As a feed level 3 certified supplier, John is trying to increase his food indicator rating by reducing production waste. He posts pasture-raised chicken bones at a discounted price on the feed supplier marketplace, and Christine decides to buy them for her pho broth since the discounted price meets her budget. When the sales finalize, they both receive an increase in their overall feed rating. Christine promotes John's farm on her feed profile and on her menu. Finally, let's meet the consumer. Abdul is a sustainably minded Gen Z who signed up on the Feed for Future platform as a user aligning with SDG 11. Abdul receives a push notification about Christine's new local supplier relationship and decides to visit her restaurant for the first time for lunch. Abdul posts on social media about his meal, and posts like this help increase Christine's sales over time, allowing the family business to become more profitable. She starts an employee education fund to give back to her hardworking staff, and this earns her a higher education rating on the platform. So we use the prosperity thinking model. You can see the clear value proposition for all three stakeholder groups from the Feed for Future concept. For the chef owner, they can differentiate and attract new customers, meet new local suppliers to shorten their supply chain. For the farmer, they have new market exposure and a marketplace for selling surplus and reducing their waste. For consumers, they receive more transparent information about local restaurants, and they have a reliable guide for sustainable eating while traveling that appeals to their value set. We have a lot more research and development to do, but thus far we've received strong validation from all three stakeholder groups that it would be something they would use to benefit their businesses or their personal lifestyle. The fact that we're looking at sustainability holistically beyond better sourcing or better packaging is a clear win. The platform offers equitable access for restaurants at any scale to become more sustainable and economically viable. We, as a Feed for Future team, quite honestly, have been very busy with our independent businesses, our jobs, and schooling. And as a result, we have a very slow plan to develop this idea over the next 2 years. We've considered ways to ensure that the platform can remain free to all consumers so that it's accessible through a small subscription from certified restaurants and suppliers, in addition to potential partnership opportunities for sponsorship. And an idea like this really can't happen without relationships and partnerships. And in fact, we realized that we can't accomplish this idea without collaboration and some honing on the development concept. So we're seeking support to realize this vision. If you're interested or have ideas about possible partnerships, we would love to hear from you. I've listed my email here. I'll also put that in the chat, and we'll also send out a survey just to gather some general information from you that I'll also place in the chat here, as well as post on social media. So in closing, here's my final thought for you. This Feed for Future business concept is ultimately a community action movement with restaurants at the center. The idea presents a way to ignite sustainable change with the potential to support the triple bottom line for businesses, as well as the 2030 agenda. It's a pro-sustainability food movement that can spread far and wide in service of resilient communities and restaurants. Thank you for your time.
Evie, thank you so much. It was so nice to hear about the project again in such a concise way. In the meanwhile, I shared the link to the survey on all of the channels where we broadcast. So please, everyone, at least take the first step and support the project by filling out the survey what the team put together. And if anyone else has other ways of contributing, you have Abby's availability, or you can also reach out through Future Food, and we will make sure that you are connected. So Abby, I wanted to thank you again to represent Feed for Future on today's Food for Earth session. And now I will hand over the virtual torch to San Francisco. So Abby was dialing in from Portland, and now we are moving to San Francisco, handing over to one of our great ambassadors and Future Food family members, Tim West, and his guests.